Good morning and welcome to our latest webinar in our Be Ready Straight Talking series, focused on being equipped with the right technology for whatever comes next. The pandemic has been a tough real-life stress test and changed the landscape irreversibly. With no new normal to return to, businesses of every size and sector have adapted to different ways of working. It really has changed everything, from how work gets done to how we communicate and collaborate, highlighting both opportunities and efficiencies, as well as risk and vulnerabilities. As we move forward into uncharted territory, it's vital to equip your business with the future-proof technology needed to be resilient and ready for whatever comes next. It's pretty evident that a lot has changed in the last year. There has been a radical change in the way we communicate, both as a customer and within our teams, and have adapted quickly to some form of remote working. And whilst many businesses will continue to adopt a flexible working structure, with a combination of remote and office working, the focus is also on having the right tools in place to make sure they are secure, with a significant increase in data breaches, phishing scams, viruses, and ransomware. And as cash is king, reviewing how we pay for business services has also come under the spotlight, with many businesses now looking to subscription pricing in order to get more flexibility and better value for money. What this means is we really are in uncharted waters, with every business facing a new normal depending upon what actions they've taken in the last 12 months. How do you ensure that your business is ready for whatever comes next, whatever that may be? I'm delighted today to be joined by Daniel Lewis from Qmulus. Qmulus are one of the leading Sage CRM partners globally and core strategic partner and ISV developer for Sage. Welcome, Daniel.
Hello, Daniel. How are you? Great name, by the way.
Yeah. Great name. It's the Daniel Show. So I suppose that the best place to start is, how has business been for Qmulus over the last 12 months?
So as you mentioned, we do Sage services, predominantly Sage CRM, but we also provide Sage accounting services for customers, both in the UK, in the US, and across into Asia and Australia, etc. And I guess for us, business has been fairly good overall. We had a small dip last April, as a lot of businesses did, when people took a bit of a break and took a bit of stock as to where they are in their business, trying to work out what was going on in the world in general. Business became less important in general to people at the time. But after the initial April kind of pause period in everyone's life, actually business started to pick up quite rapidly. And the main thing for us is we started to get calls from people that had Sage 50, Sage 200, CRM products, etc. And they wanted to start moving those into the cloud to support IT and remote working. And for those of you that have Sage Accounts products, you may know that depending on what version you've got, there are various hurdles to overcome to allow that and enable that move into the cloud. So we started working with lots of customers, both directly and indirectly, moving them onto the cloud. We found that whilst we had a lot of contacts and calls from customers wanting to do that, it became evident that there were loads of sort of hidden pitfalls and issues and things that customers needed to consider and overcome that they probably hadn't considered before. Examples of these are things like backups and antivirus, where for the SME type of level, it's not something that people put enough effort into understanding. They kind of think that if you've got laptops out there that are with staff that have gone home, or even just in general over the years, staff have been using laptops out on the road, are they actually backing up that data? Is that data that they're storing on that laptop being held anywhere as a secure backup? Are all the devices that they're running, such as antivirus on their devices, not only on their laptops but on their mobile phones for phishing, etc., phishing attacks, etc., is that all secure? Are they up to date with all of the latest antivirus updates, etc.? So that started to make a lot of businesses that we deal with think more about their general IT rather than just the systems that we provided. But we've also, from our perspective, seen some of our customers have had fairly rapid growth due to COVID and have upgraded their account systems and generally their whole systems across the board. An example of this is a customer that had previously made internal and external signage. So they would make plastic signage, etc., internal fire exit signs and stuff like that, and it obviously very easily and very rapidly moved their business into a manufacturing of screens and dividers and stuff like that. So they grew massively. They've had many multiple times increase in growth. I think businesses have in general been fairly resilient and have shaped and molded to the best of their ability. And really what we found is that the COVID crisis has probably mainly really accelerated an existing trend that customers had in adopting more cloud computing, as you mentioned on the intro, more around subscription billing, etc., to allow them to pick up services and move them into the cloud, and also into a lower upfront cost and a more ongoing cost kind of basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the changes made within Qmulus during that period, what do you find were the pros and cons?
So I guess the pros and cons that we found. I mean, we obviously already used a telephony system, a VoIP telephony system from yourselves, because of the line of business where we're quite often going out to customers' sites, doing work for them and traveling around quite a lot. We predominantly already used laptops. So our decision from deciding we were going to go to home working from office working took us no more than around a day to action. Everyone pretty much picked up their laptops. You obviously contacted yourself and sorted out some integrations between our laptops and the voice systems so that we could do calling, etc., from our laptops. But the main thing was that everyone one day picked up their laptop at lunchtime, went home for the afternoon, did some checks to make sure that they could work from home, and if they couldn't, they would come back into the office if they wanted to, and until we sorted them out. But actually, everyone from that moment pretty much stayed working from home, and that was pretty easy to do and pretty easy to pick up. But we made the decision fairly early on to not furlough any of our staff at all. So what we did, because we're a software company, is that we took our developers and our consultants and actually gave them the time back that they would normally have been working on customer sites, and allowed them to write and develop the software and add-ons and work on projects that they've never had time to work on before because they were too busy doing customer work, and instead actually created us a large amount of various add-ons, etc., that we now sell as part of either add-ons or free of charge bundles that we give away to our customers to enable them to do certain features, etc., within the software. So that worked really well with us at the time. Obviously, over the past 6 months, things have started picking up a lot more, so they started going back more into consultancy. But we made sure as well that we built stronger relationships with our suppliers. So we've got some of those integrations that we wrote. We've actually got integrations between Sage CRM, Sage 50, and Sage 200 that allow people to use the Sage CRM tool from Sage with their Sage 50 systems to allow their sales staff to work remotely from anywhere on a web browser, but post that information into Sage 50 or Sage 200. And off the back of that, we've actually built a relationship with Sage, where Sage are now directly selling that. So that's worked quite well for us. But we found, I guess, one of the pros, and I guess one of the cons as well, is that we found that customers want more than one service now. They used to come to us wanting one specific thing, but now the conversation has opened up more into how do you perform backups and antivirus, and what other services, how can we support remote working. So the whole range of products that they're actually purchasing from us has grown from the one core product we've always done into a larger stack of products to allow us to give extra value add really around our Sage offerings that we give our customers. I guess so from our side, there's been a lot of pros. Not going to say there's been lots of cons, but actually we found that whilst working from home has been productive on an individual level, so users have not really slowed down in what they're outputting, staff have not slowed down what they're outputting within the business. As a team collaboration exercise, we found that certain projects, certain things have slowed down in their sort of start to end date kind of stuff. So it's just taken slightly longer for projects to get finished, slightly longer for internal decisions to be made, because you're not sitting down in a room and hammering it out over a desk and grabbing a coffee and walking past someone's desk and asking them a question. It's all done more over things like Teams and your collaboration tools, etc.
Yeah.
And whilst they're great, whilst you can give someone a Teams call, it's a bit like email turned into that. It used to be somewhere you got hold of people quickly, and now it's suddenly developed into, you'll answer it when you've got time,
Yeah.
or when you feel it's right. So that's been a kind of I guess that's been kind of a negative from our side. But overall, we've seen a lot of positives, and actually in our customers, we've seen they've had a lot of positives as well from the change of their business and the adaptation of their business.
Yeah, I mean that moves perfectly onto my next question. Really, is like with obviously lockdown restrictions now lifting, what changes have you made that you'll be keeping within the business, and what will you not be adopting moving forward?
Yes, it's a good question. So we'll still be home working in part, but we always did for certain roles within the business anyway, because we cover the whole of the UK predominantly for our customers. We've always needed consultants based in various different locations. So we've got some people that work up north around the Newcastle area, which is where Sage are based. We've got some people down in London and in the Midlands, etc. So we've always had people that jump in their cars and go out and do consultancy. So that's pretty much staying the same, but the more of the internal staff, the support teams, marketing, etc., that have been working predominantly from home, or well, all from home really. In part, will still be working from home, but we are looking at getting people having more face-to-face meetings, and it's been our experience with customers that they're looking at doing the same. I mean, I feel for people that own property, business parks, etc., because I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be deciding that on the next renewal they're not going to be needing their offices, or a lot smaller offices, etc. But we're going to do as well. One of the key other things that we're going to keep, I think pretty much every business is going to do this, is continue to hold non-essential face-to-face meetings remotely. It's been very useful to be able to talk and converse with customers quickly and rapidly without having to jump in a car, schedule meetings, travel many hours, and effectively waste potentially half a day driving to and from a meeting. Whereas now, because people have been forced to adopt video conferencing, etc., it's just been so much easier for people to have that conversation. And also, actually, it's interesting. Whilst I think that the increase in use of Zoom and Teams and products like that have potentially slightly slowed down internal work between teams internally, they've actually rapidly accelerated work with customers. So it's very common for us to quickly Teams call a customer about an issue, or Teams call them about a project and a question that we might have. It's been a lot more instant than potentially having to jump in a car and drive up there and schedule meetings in, etc. So there's definitely been some pros around that that we're going to keep. And also, as mentioned, we've been offering more and more services internally. So we're offering more around sort of antivirus and some of the supporting services around IT systems, as you'd expect, so that we can manage and look after more of their customer stack of products that they use.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose finally, what changes have you noticed from your customers over the last sort of 12 months or so, like their expectations with these?
Yeah, so cloud adoption rates have definitely skyrocketed across the board in every single sector. Traditionally, the accounting sector and accounting teams within businesses have been quite slow to adopt change in IT. It's been very common for finance directors, finance managers, etc., to be reluctant to pick up their accounting data and move that information into the cloud. I think with people being more used to online banking and having their home bank accounts accessible via a browser, it's helped people understand that within a business sense. But actually, there's been a big impact on the accounting sector with cloud adoption. So we've seen our customers definitely wanting to move their cloud, wanting to move their account software into the cloud. And people are buying more than one product, as I mentioned, so a bigger subset of products from us, which is, it's interesting because a lot of the customers that we're dealing with previously hadn't actually used antivirus or backup within their business. I don't know why. I think they just think that they weren't going to get hit. But as soon as you do have a server or something hit with a ransomware attack, it's much cheaper to have paid for the software up front than it is to go through the hassle of trying to rebuild servers and gather data and deal with lost data. So that's been something that our customers have definitely taken up more. But also they've because they've been slow in the past to pick it up, and because we have been doing this for years, I think businesses tend to sort of assume that customers understand what we're talking about when we talk to them. So it's very much, we'll sit there and talk about, oh, you need backup and antivirus because of phishing attacks and scams and ransomware, and we use these terms because they're the terms that we live in. But a lot of the customers that we've dealt with don't live in those terms. They don't really understand it, and I guess businesses can be quite sort of flippant and sort of overlook the fact that what's standard terminology to us isn't standard terminology to our customers. And so we've worked a lot on giving customers a lot more guidance, having more sort of coffee table kind of chats where we just talk to them a lot more about how they're doing, and any bits they don't understand, and explaining what ransomware is and what phishing attacks are, and helping them understand how that might impact their business, whether they buy the software, whether they buy any services off us or not. We've actually used that opportunity to open up and have greater, more meaningful conversations with our customers, both for us and predominantly for them.
Definitely. The business landscape has changed, and familiar playbooks and proven approaches are now outdated. As the workplace adjusts and customers demand more, the need for better communication and collaboration tools have never been more prevalent. It's vital to have the right IT and communications in place to allow your business to operate at the optimum level, but also to provide peace of mind, and it's able to adapt, flex, and scale when needed. Never has it been more important to be operational 24/7, be productive anywhere, and protect what matters most. Only if you equip your business with the resilient IT and communications will you be ready for the changes that happen in the future. Thank you, Daniel, for joining me today. It was really insightful and thought-provoking to hear about the business. I look forward to welcoming you all to our next Be Ready webinar in the coming months.